the Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Translated into English prose from the original Sanskrit text by Pratap Chandra Roy C.I.E. This free ebook has been downloaded from holybooks.com. Udyoga Parva. Section 151, Bhagavathyanapava. Vaisampayana said, hearing these words of Janardana, King Yudhishthira the just, of virtuous soul, addressed his brothers in the presence of Kesava and said, Ye have heard all that had happened in the court of the assembled Kurus. Ye have also understood the words uttered by Kesava. Ye best of men, draw up therefore my troops now in battle array in which they are to fight. Here are 7 Akshahinis of troops assembled for our victory. Here the names of those 7 celebrated warriors that would lead those 7 Akshahinis. They are Drupada and Virata and Dhristadyumna, and Sikhandi and Satyaki, Chekitna, and Bhimasena of great energy. Those heroes will be the leaders of my troops. All of them are conversant with the Veds. Endued with great bravery, all of them have practiced excellent wars. Possessed of modesty, all of them are conversant with policy and accomplished in war. Well skilled in arrows and weapons, all of them are competent in the use of every kind of weapon. Tell us now, O Sahadeva, O son of Kuru's race, who that warrior is conversant with all kinds of battle array, that may become the leader of these 7 and may also withstand in battle Bhishma, who is like unto a fire having arrows for its flames. Give us thy own opinion, O tiger among men, as who is fit to be our generalissimo. Sahadeva said, closely related to us, sympathizing with us in our distress, endued with great might, conversant with every virtue, skilled in weapons and irresistible in battle, the mighty king of the Matsyas, Virata, relying upon whom we hope to recover our share of the kingdom, will be able to bear in battle both Bhishma and all those mighty warriors. Vaisampayana continued, after Sahadeva had said this, eloquent Nakula then said these words, He that in years, in knowledge of scriptures, in perseverance, in family and birth, is respectable. He that is endued with modesty, strength, and prosperity, he that is well versed in all branches of learning, he that studied the science of weapons with the sage Bharadvaja. He who is irresistible and firmly devoted to truth, he that always challenges Drona and mighty Bhishma, he that belongs to one of the foremost of royal houses, he that is a famous leader of hosts, he that resembles a tree of 100 branches in consequence of sons and grandsons that surround him. That king who with his wife performed, moved by wrath, the austerest of penance for the destruction of Drona, that hero who is an ornament of assemblies, that bull among monarchs who always cherishes us like a father, that father-in-law of ours, Drupada, should be our generalissimo. It is my opinion that he will be able to withstand both Drona and Bhishma rushing to battle, for that king is the friend of Anjira's descendant Drona and is conversant with celestial weapons. After the 2 sons of Madri had thus expressed their individual opinions, Vasava's son Savyaschin, who was equal to Vasava himself, said these words. This celestial person of the hue of fire and endued with mighty arms, who sprang into life through the power of ascetic penances and the gratification of sages, who issued from the sacrificial fire whole armed with bow and sword, accoutred in armor of steel, mounted on a car unto which were yoked excellent steeds of the best breed, and the clatter of whose car wheels was as deep as the roar of mighty masses of clouds. This hero, endued with that energy and strength and resembling the very lion in his frame of body and prowess, and possessed of leonine shoulders, arms, chest, and voice like the lion's roar. This hero of great effulgence, this warrior of handsome brows, fine teeth, round cheeks, long arms, of stout make, excellent thighs, large expansive eyes, excellent legs, and strong frame. This prince, who is incapable of being penetrated by weapons of any kind, and who looks like an elephant with rent temples. This Dhristadyumna, truthful in speech and with passions under control, was born for the destruction of Drona. It is this Drishtadyumna, I think, that will be able to bear Bhishma's arrows, which strike with the vehemence of the thunderbolt and look like snakes with blazing mouths, which resemble the messengers of Yama in speed, and fall like flames of fire consuming everything they touch, and which were borne before by Rama alone in battle. I do not, O king, see the man except Drishtadyumna, who is able to withstand Bhishma of great woes. This is just what I think. Endued with great lightness of band and conversant with all the modes of warfare, accoutred in coat of mail that is incapable of being penetrated by weapons, this handsome hero, resembling the leader of a herd of elephants, is, according to my opinion, fit to be our generalissimo. Bhima then said, that son of Drupada, Sikhandi, who is born for the destruction of Bhishma, as is said, O king, by the sages and siddhas assembled together, whose form on the field of battle, while displaying celestial weapons, will be seen by men to resemble that of the illustrious Rama himself. I see not, O king, the person who is able to pierce with weapons that Sikhandi, when he is stationed for battle on his car, accoutred in mail. Except the heroic Sikhandi, there is no other warrior who is able to slay Bhishma in single combat. It is for this, O king, that I think Sikhandi is fit to be our generalissimo. Yudhishthira said, O sire, the strength and weakness, might and feebleness, of everything in the universe, and the intentions of every person here, are well known to virtuous Kesava. Skilled or unskilled in weapons, old or young, let him be the leader of my forces, who may be indicated by Krishna of Dasara's race. Even he is the root of our success or defeat. In him are our lives, our kingdom, our prosperity and adversity, our happiness and misery. Even he is the ordainer and creator. In him is established the fruition of our desires. Let him therefore be the leader of our host, who may be named by Krishna. Let that foremost of speakers say, for the night approacheth. Having selected our leader, worshipped our weapons with offerings of flowers and perfumes, we will at daybreak, under Krishna's orders, march to the field of battle. Vaisampayana continued, hearing these words of the intelligent king, Yudhishthira the just, the lotus-eyed Krishna said, while eyeing Dhananjaya, O king, I fully approve of all those powerful warriors whom ye have named for becoming the leaders of thy troops. All of them are competent to withstand thy force. Indeed, they can frighten Indra himself in great battle, let alone the covetous and wicked-minded sons of Dhritarashtra. O thou of mighty arms, for thy good I made great efforts to prevent the battle by bringing about peace. By that we have been freed from the debt we owed to virtue. Fault-finding persons will not be able to reproach us for anything. Foolish Duryodhana, destitute of understanding, regardeth himself as skilled in weapons, and though really weak thinketh himself to be possessed of strength. Array thy troops soon, for slaughter is the only means by which they can be made to yield to our demands. Indeed, the sons of Dhritarashtra will never be able to keep their ground when they will behold Dhananjaya with Yuyudhana as his second, and Abhimanyu and the 5 sons of Draupadi and Virata, and Drupada and the other kings of fierce prowess, all lords of Akshahinis. Our army is possessed of great strength and is invincible and incapable of being withstood. Without doubt, it will slay the Dhartarashtra host. As regards our leader, I would name that chastiser of foes, Drishtadyumna. Thus ends the 151st section in the Bhagavathyanapurva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 152, Bhagavathyanapava. Vaisampayana said, when Krishna had said this, all the monarchs there were filled with joy. And the shout sent forth by those delighted kings was tremendous. And the troops began to move about with great speed, saying, draw up, draw up. And the neighing of steeds and roars of elephants, and the clatter of car wheels and the blare of conches and the sound of drums, heard everywhere, produced a tremendous din. And teeming with cars and foot soldiers and steeds and elephants, that invincible host of the marching Pandavas, moving hither and thither, donning their coats of mail and uttering their war cries, looked like the impetuous current of the Ganga when at its full, agitated with fierce eddies and waves. And in the van of that host marched Bhimasena and the 2 sons of Madri, encased in their coats of mail, and Subhadra's son, and the 5 sons of Draupadi and Drishtadhyumna of Prishata's race. And the Prabhadrakas and the Panchalas marched behind Bhimasena. And the din made by the marching hosts filled with joy, was like unto the roars of the deep when the tide is highest on the day of the new moon. Indeed, the tumult was such that it seemed to reach the very heavens. And capable of breaking hostile ranks, those warriors cased in armor marched thus, filled with joy. And Kunti's son, King Yudhishthira, amongst them marched, taking with him the cars and other vehicles for transport, the food stores and fodder, the tents, carriages, and draft cattle, the cash chests, the machines and weapons, the surgeons and physicians, the invalids and all the emaciated and weak soldiers, and all the attendants and camp followers. And truthful Draupadi, the princess of Panchala, accompanied by the ladies of the household, and surrounded by servants and maids, remained at Upaplavya. And causing their treasure and ladies to be guarded by bodies of soldiers, some of whom were placed as permanent lines of circumvallation and some ordered to move about at a distance from this line, the Pandavas set out with their mighty host. And having made presents of kin and gold to the Brahmanas, who walked around them and uttered blessings, the sons of Pandu commenced the march on their cars decked with jewels. And the princes of Kekaya, and Drishtaketu, and the son of the king of the Kasis, and Shrinimat, and Vasudhana, and the invincible Sikhandi, all hale and hearty, cased in armor and armed with weapons and decked with ornaments, marched behind Yudhishthira, keeping him in their center. And in the rear were Virata, Yajnasena's son of the Somoka race, Drishtadhyumna, Susaman, Kuntibhoja, Drishtadhyumna's sons, 40,000 cars, 5 times as much cavalry, infantry 10 times more numerous than the last, and 60,000 elephants. And Anadrishti and Chekitna and Drishtaketu and Satyaki all marched, surrounding Vasudeva and Dhananjaya. And reaching the field of Kurukshetra with their forces in battle array, those smiters, the sons of Pandu, looked like roaring bulls. And entering the field, those chastiser of foes blew their conches. And Vasudeva and Dhananjaya also blew their conches. And hearing the blare of the conch called Panchajanya, which resembled the roll of the thunder, all the warriors of the Pandava army were filled with joy. And the leonine roars of those warriors, endued with lightness of hand and speed of motion, mingling with the blare of conches and beat of drums, made the whole earth, the welkin and the oceans resound therewith. Thus ends the 152nd section in the Bhagavathyanapurva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 153, Bhagavathyanapurva. Vaisampayana said, King Yudhishthira then caused his troops to encamp on a part of the field that was level, cool and abounding with grass and fuel. Avoiding cemeteries, temples and compounds consecrated to the deities, asylums of sages, shrines and other sacred plots, Kunti's high-souled son Yudhishthira pitched his camp on a delightful, fertile, open and sacred part of the plain. And rising up again, after his animals had been given sufficient rest, the king set out joyously, surrounded by hundreds and thousands of monarchs. And Kesava, accompanied by Partha, began to move about, scattering numerous soldiers of Dhritarashtra, kept as outposts. And Drishtadhyumna of Prishata's race and that mighty car warrior of great energy, viz. Yuyudhana, otherwise called Satyaki, measured the ground for the encampment. And arrived O Bharata, at the holy Hiranvati, which flows through Kurukshetra, which was filled with sacred water, and whose bed was divested of pointed pebbles and mire, and which was regarded as an excellent tirtha, Kesava caused a moat to be excavated therein for its protection, stationed a sufficient number of troops with proper instructions. And the rules that were observed in respect of the tents of the high-souled Pandavas were followed by Kesava in the matter of the tents, which he caused to be set up for the kings that came as their allies. And O monarch, costly tents, incapable of being attacked, apart from one another, were by hundreds and thousands set up for those kings on the surface of the earth, that looked like palatial residences and abounded with fuels and edibles and drinks. And there were assembled hundreds upon hundreds of skilled mechanics, in receipt of regular wages, and surgeons and physicians, well versed in their own science and furnished with every ingredient they might need. And King Yudhishthira caused to be placed in every pavilion large quantities, high as hills, of bowstrings and bows and coats of mail and weapons, honey and clarified butter, pounded lac, water, fodder of cattle, chaff and coals, heavy machines, long shafts, lances, battle axes, bowstaffs, breastplates, scimitars and quivers. And innumerable elephants, cased in plates of steel with prickles thereon, huge as hills and capable of fighting with hundreds and thousands, were seen there. And learning that the Pandavas had encamped on that field, their allies of Bharata, with their forces and animals, began to march thither. And many kings who had practiced brahmacharya vows, drunk consecrated soma and had made large presents to Brahmanas at sacrifices, came there for the success of the sons of Pandu. Thus ends the 153rd section in the Bhagavathyanapurva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 154, Bhagavathyanapava. Janamejaya said, hearing that Yudhishthira had, with his troops marched from the desire of battle and encamped on Kurukshetra, protected by Vasudeva, and aided by Virata and Drupada with their sons, and surrounded by the Kekayas, the Vrishnis, and other kings by hundreds, and watched over by numerous mighty warriors, like the great Indra himself by the Adityas, what measures were concerted by King Duryodhana? O high-souled one, I desire to hear in detail all that happened in Kurujangala on that frightful occasion. The son of Pandu, with Vasudeva and Virata and Drupada and Drishtadhyumna, the Panchala prince and that mighty warrior Sikhundin and powerful Yudamanyu, incapable of being resisted by the very gods, might trouble the deities themselves in battle with Indra at their head. I therefore desire to hear in detail, O thou that art possessed of wealth of asceticism, all the acts of the Kurus and the Pandavas as they had happened. Vaisampayana said, when he of the Saras race had departed from the Kuru court, King Duryodhana, addressing Karna and Dusasana and Sakuni, said these words, Kesava hath gone to the sons of Pritha without having been able to achieve his object. Filled with wrath as he is, he will surely stimulate the Pandavas. A battle between myself and Pandavas is much desired by Vasudeva. Bhimasena and Arjuna are ever of the same mind with him. Yudhishthira again, is very much under the influence of Bhimasena. Before this, Yudhishthira with all his brothers was persecuted by me. Virata and Drupada, whom I had waged hostilities with, obedient to Vasudeva, both of them have become the leaders of Yudhishthira's host. The battle therefore that will take place will be a fierce and terrific one. Casting off all sloth, cause every preparation to be made for the encounter. Let the kings, my allies, pitch their tents by hundreds and thousands on Kurukshetra, all of which must be spacious, incapable of being approached by enemies, near enough to places abounding with water and fuel, in such positions that the communications thereto for sending supplies may not be stopped at any time by the foe, full of weapons of divers kinds and decked with streamers and flags. Let the road from our city to the camp be made level for their march. Let it be proclaimed this very day, without loss of time, that our march will commence tomorrow. Hearing these words of the king, they said, "So be it," and when the morrow came, those high-souled persons did everything they had been commanded to do for the accommodation of the monarchs. And all those monarchs meanwhile, hearing the king's command, rose up from their costly seats, with wrath having the foe for its objects. And they began to slowly rub their mace-like arms, blazing with bracelets of gold, and decked with the paste of sandal and other fragrant substances. And they also commenced, with those lotus-like hands of theirs, to wear their headgears and lower and upper garments and divers kinds of ornaments. And many foremost of car warriors began to superintend the furnishing of their cars, and persons conversant with horse lore began to harness their steeds, while those versed in matters relating to elephants began to equip those huge animals. And all those warriors began to wear divers kinds of beautiful armor made of gold, and armed themselves with divers weapons. And the foot soldiers began to take up various kinds of arms and case their bodies in various kinds of armor decorated with gold. And, O Bharata, the city of Duryodhana then, filled as it was with rejoicing millions, wore the bright aspect of a festive occasion. And O king, the Kuru capital at the prospect of battle looked like the ocean on the appearance of the moon, with the vast crowds of humanity representing its waters with their eddies, the cars, elephants, and horses representing its fishes, the tumult of conches and drums, its roar, the treasure chests, its jewels and gems, the divers kinds of ornaments and armor its waves, the bright weapons its white foam, the rows of houses the mountains on its beach, and the roads and shops like lakes. Thus ends the 154th section in the Bhagavathyanapurva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 155, Bhagavathyanapava. Vaisampayana said, recollecting the words spoken by Vasudeva, Yudhishthira once more addressed that scion of Vrishni's race saying, "How, O Kesava, could wicked Duryodhana say it? O thou of unfading glory, what should we do in view of the occasion that hath come? By acting in what way may we keep on the track of our duty? Thou, O Vasudeva, art acquainted with the views of Duryodhana, Karna and Sakuni, the son of Suvala. Thou knowest also what views are entertained by myself and my brothers. Thou hast heard the words uttered by both Vidura and Bhishma. O thou of great wisdom, thou hast also heard in their entirety the words of wisdom spoken by Kunti. Overlooking all these, tell us, O thou of mighty arms, after reflection and without hesitation, what is for our good." Hearing these words of King Yudhishthira the just, that were fraught with virtue and profit, Krishna replied in a voice deep as that of the clouds or cymbals, saying, responding to his advantage and consistent with both virtue and profit, "Those words that were uttered by me in the Kuru court found no response in the Kuru prince Duryodhana, with whom deceit supplieth the place of wisdom. That wretch of wicked understanding listeneth not in the least to the counsels of Bhishma or Vidura or mine. He transgresseth everybody. He wisheth not to earn virtue, nor doth he wish for fame. That wicked-souled wight, relying upon Karna, regardeth everything as already won. Indeed, Suryodhana of wicked heart and sinful in his resolves, even ordered my incarceration, but he did not however obtain the fruition of that wish. Neither Bhishma nor Drona said anything on that subject. Indeed, all of them follow Duryodhana, except Vidura, O thou of unfading glory. Sakuni, the son of Suvala, and Karna and Dusasana, all equally foolish, gave foolish and vindictive Duryodhana much improper advice regarding thee. Indeed, what use is there in my repeating to thee all that the Kuru prince hath said? In brief, that wicked-souled wight beareth no goodwill towards thee. Not even in all these kings together that form thy army, is that measure of sinfulness and wickedness which resideth in Duryodhana alone. As regards ourselves, we do not desire to make peace with the Kauravas by abandoning our property. War therefore is that which should now take place. Vaisampayana continued, hearing these words uttered by Vasudeva, all the kings there present, O Bharata, without saying anything, looked at Yudhishthira's face. And Yudhishthira, understanding the intention of those monarchs, said, with Bhima and Arjuna and the twins, draw up the troops in battle array. And the word of command having been passed, a great uproar rose amongst the Pandava army and all the soldiers were filled with joy. King Yudhishthira the just, however, beholding the impending slaughter of those that deserved not to be slain, began to sigh deeply, and addressing Bhimasena and Vijaya said, that for the sake of which I accepted an exile into the woods and for which I suffered so much misery, that great calamity overtaketh us of a set purpose. That for which we strove so much leaveth us, as if on account of our very striving. On the other hand, a great distress overtaketh us, although we did nothing to invite it. How shall we fight with those reverend superiors of ours, whom we on no account can slay? What kind of victory shall we achieve by slaying our preceptors of venerable age? Hearing these words of King Yudhishthira the just, Savyaschin repeated to his elder brother all those words that Vasudeva had said. And addressing Yudhishthira, Arjuna continued, Thou hast, O king, certainly understood all the words spoken by Kunti and Vidura, that were repeated to thee by Devki's son. I know it for certain that neither Vidura nor Kunti would say anything that is sinful. Besides this, O son of Kunti, we cannot withdraw without engaging in battle. Hearing this speech of Savyaschin, Vasudeva also said unto Partha, It is even so, as thou hast said. The sons of Pandu then, O great king, made up their minds for war, and passed that night with their soldiers in great happiness. Thus ends the 155th section in the Bhagavathyanapurva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 156, Bhagavathyanapurva. Vaisampayana said, after that night had passed away, King Duryodhana of Bharata distributed in proper order his 11 Akshahinis of troops. And arranging his men, elephants, cars, and steeds, into 3 classes, viz., superior, middling and inferior, the king distributed them amongst his divisions by placing them in the van, center and rear of the ranks, and furnished with timber and planks for repairing the damages their cars might sustain in the press of battle, with large quivers borne on cars, with tiger skins and other stiff leather for enveloping the sides of cars, with barbed javelins to be hurled by the hand, with quivers borne on the backs of steeds and elephants, with long-handled spears of iron and missiles and quivers borne on the backs of foot soldiers with heavy clubs of wood, with flagstaffs and banners, with long heavy shafts shot from bows, with divers kinds of nooses and lassos, with armor of various kinds, with short pointed clubs of wood, with oil, treacle, and sand, with earthen pots filled with poisonous snakes, with pulverized lac and other inflammable matter, with short spears furnished with tinkling bells, with divers weapons of iron, and machines for hurling hot treacle, water, and stones, with whistling clubs of hard wood, with wax and heavy mallets, with clubs of wood having iron spikes, with plough poles and poisoned darts, with long syringes for pouring warm treacle and planks of cane, with battle axes and forked lances, with spiked gauntlets, with axes and pointed iron spikes, with cars having their sides covered with skins of tigers and leopards, with sharp-edged circular planks of wood, with horns, with javelins and various other weapons of attack, with axes of the Kuthara species, and spades, with cloths steeped in oil, and with clarified butter, the divisions of Duryodhana, glittering with robes embroidered with gold and decked with various kinds of jewels and gems and consisting of warriors endued with handsome persons, blazed forth like fire, and cased in coats of mail and well skilled in weapons, accomplished in horse lore, brave persons of good birth were employed as car drivers. And all the cars were furnished with various drugs, and with horses having rows of bells and pearls on their heads, and with banners and flagstaffs, and with ornaments gracing their steeples and turrets, and with shields, swords, and lances, and javelins and spiked maces. And unto each of those cars were yoked 4 steeds of the best breed. And upon each of them were kept 100 boss. And each car had 1 driver in charge of the couple of steeds in front, and 2 drivers in charge of the couple of steeds attached to the wheels on the 2 sides. And both of the last mentioned drivers were skilled car warriors, while the car warrior himself was also skilled in driving steeds. And thousands of cars thus furnished and decked with gold, and protected like fortified town and incapable of being conquered by force, were stationed on all sides. And the elephants also were furnished with rows of bells and pearls and decked with diverse ornaments. And on the back of each of those animals, mounted 7 warriors. And in consequence of such accoutrements those animals looked like hills graced with jewels. And amongst the 7, 2 were armed with hooks, 2 were excellent bowmen, 2 were first-rate swordsmen, and 1, O king, was armed with a lance and trident. And O king, the army of the illustrious Kuru king, teemed with innumerable infuriate elephants, bearing on their backs loads of weapons and quivers filled with arrows. And there were also thousands of steeds ridden by brave soldiers accoutred in mail, decked in ornaments, and furnished with flags. And numbering in hundreds and thousands, all those steeds were free from the habit of scratching the ground with their 4 hooves. And they were all well trained and decked with ornaments of gold, and exceedingly obedient to their riders. And of foot soldiers, there were hundreds of thousands of divers mien, accoutred in armors of divers kinds and armed also with weapons of divers species, and decked with golden ornaments. And unto each car were assigned 10 elephants, and unto each elephant 10 horses, and unto each horse 10 foot soldiers as protectors. Again, a large body of troops was kept as a reserve for rallying the ranks that would be broken. And this reserve consisted of cars, unto each of which were attached 50 elephants, and unto each elephant were attached 100 horses, and unto each horse were attached 7 foot soldiers. 500 cars, as many elephants, 1500 horses, and 2500 foot soldiers, constitute a sena. 10 senas constitute a pritana, and 10 pritanas, a vahini. In common parlance, however, the words sena, vahini, pritana, dvajini, chamu, akshohini and varuthini are used in the same sense. It was thus that the intelligent Kaurava arrayed his force. Between the 2 sides, the total number was 18 akshohinis. Of this, the Pandava force consisted of 7 akshohinis, while the Kaurava force consisted of 10 akshohinis and 1 more. 5 times 50 men constitute a padi. 3 padis make a senamukha or gulma. 3 gulmas make a gana. In Duryodhana's army, there were thousands and hundreds of such ganas consisting of warriors capable of smiting the foe and longing for battle. And the mighty armed King Duryodhana, selecting from among them brave and intelligent warriors, made them the leaders of his troops. And placing an akshohini of troops under each of those best of men, viz., Kripa, Drona, Salya, Jayadratha the king of the Sindhus, Sudakshina the ruler of the Kambojas, Kritavaman, Drona's son Asvathaman, Karna, Bharisravas, Sakuni the son of Suvila, and the mighty Valika, the king used to bring them daily before him and at all hours, and speak to them. And he repeatedly offered them worship before his very eyes. And thus appointed, all warriors with all their followers became desirous of doing what was most agreeable to the king. Thus ends the 156th section in the Bhagavathyanapurva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 157, Bhagavathyanapava. Vaisampayana said, Dhritarashtra's son, accompanied by all the kings, then addressed Bhishma, son of Santanu, and with joined hands said these words, without a commander, even a mighty army is routed in battle like a swarm of ants. The intelligence of two persons can never agree. Different commanders again are jealous of one another as regards their prowess. O thou of great wisdom, it is heard by us that once on a time the Brahmanas, raising a standard of kusa grass, encountered in battle the Kshatriyas of the Hehaya clan endued with immeasurable energy. O grandsire, the Vaisyas and the Sudras followed the Brahmanas, so that all the three orders were on one side, while those bulls among the Kshatriyas were alone on the other. In the battles however that ensued, the three orders repeatedly broke, while the Kshatriyas, though alone, vanquished the large army that was opposed to them. Then those best of Brahmanas enquired of the Kshatriyas themselves as to the cause of this. O grandsire, those that were virtuous among the Kshatriyas returned the true answer to the enquirers, saying, in battle we obey the orders of one person endued with great intelligence, while ye are disunited from one another and act according to your individual understanding. The Brahmanas then appointed one amongst themselves as their commander who was brave and conversant with the ways of policy. And they then succeeded in vanquishing the Kshatriyas. Thus people always conquer their foes in battle who appoint a skilled, brave and sinless commander, observing the good of the forces under him. As regards thee, thou art equal to Usnas himself and always seekest my good. Incapable of being slain, thou art again devoted to virtue. Be thou therefore our commander. Like the sun among all luminaries, like the moon unto all delicious herbs, like Kuvara among the Yakshas, like Vasava among the gods, like Meru among mountains, Suparna among the birds, Kumara among the gods, Havyavaha among Vasus, thou art amongst ourselves. Like the gods protected by Sakra, ourselves, protected by thee will assuredly become invincible by the very gods. Like Agni's son Kumara at the head of the gods, march thou at our head, and let us follow thee like calves following the lead of a mighty bull. Bhishma said, O mighty armed one, it is even so O Bharata, as thou sayest. But the Pandavas are as dear to me as ye yourselves. Therefore O king, I should certainly seek their good as well, although I shall certainly fight for thee, having given thee a pledge before to that effect. I do not see the warrior on earth that is equal to me, except that tiger among men, Dhananjaya, the son of Kunti. Endued with great intelligence, he is conversant with innumerable celestial weapons. That son of Pandu however will never fight with me openly. With the power of my weapons I can, in a trice, destroy this universe consisting of gods, asuras, rakshasas and human beings. The sons of Pandu however O king, are incapable of being exterminated by me. I shall therefore slay every day 10,000 warriors. If indeed they do not slay me in battle first, I will continue to slaughter their forces thus. There is another understanding on which I may willingly become the commander of thy forces. It behoveth thee to listen to that. O Lord of earth, either Karna should fight first, or I will fight first. The Suta's son always boasts of his prowess in battle, comparing it with mine. Karna said, as long as Ganga's son liveth O king, I shall never fight. After Bhishma is slain, I shall fight with the wielder of Gandiva. Vaisampayana continued, after this, Dhritarashtra's son duly made Bhishma the commander of his forces, distributing large presents. And after his installation in the command, he blazed forth with beauty. And at the king's behest, musicians cheerfully played upon drums and blew conches by hundreds and thousands. And numerous leonine roars were sent forth and all the animals in the camp uttered their cries together. And although the sky was cloudless, a bloody shower fell and made the ground miry. And fierce whirlwinds and earthquakes, and roars of elephants occurring, depressed the hearts of all the warriors. Incorporeal voices and flashes of meteoric falls were heard and seen in the welkin. And jackals, howling fiercely, foreboded great calamity. And O monarch, these and 100 other kinds of fierce portents made their appearance when the king installed Ganga's son in the command of his troops. And after making Bhishma, that grinder of hostile hosts, his general, and having also caused by abundant gifts of kin and gold to the Brahmanas to pronounce benedictions on him, and glorified by those benedictions and surrounded by his troops, and with Ganga's son in the van and accompanied by his brothers, Duryodhana marched to Kurukshetra with his large host. And the Kuru king, going over the plain with Karna in his company, caused his camp to be measured out on a level part, O monarch of that plain. And the camp, pitched on a delightful and fertile spot abounding with grass and fuel, shone like Hastinapura itself. Thus ends the 157th section in the Bhagavathyanapurva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 158, Bhagavathyanapava. Janamejaya said, when Yudhishthira heard that Bhishma, the high-souled son of Ganga, the foremost of all wielders of weapons, the grandsire of the Bharatas, the head of all the kings, the rival of Brihaspati in intellect, resembling the ocean in gravity, the mountains of Himavat in calmness, the creator himself in nobleness and the sun in energy, and capable of slaying hostile hosts like great Indra himself by showering his arrows, was installed till his removal by death, in the command of the Kuru army on the eve of the great sacrifice of battle, terrific in its mien and capable of making one's hairs stand on their ends. What did that mighty armed son of Pandu, that foremost of wielders of weapons, say? What also did Bhima and Arjuna say? And what too did Krishna say? Vaisampayana said, when news was received of this, Yudhishthira, endued with great intelligence and well acquainted with what should be done in view of dangers and calamities, summoned all his brothers and also the eternal Vasudeva to his presence. And that foremost of speakers then said in a mild voice, make your rounds among the soldiers and remain careful, casing yourselves in mail. Our first encounter will be with our grandsire. Look ye for 7 leaders for the 7 Akshahinis of my troops. Krishna said, those words of grave import, which O bull of the Bharata race, it behoveth thee to utter on an occasion like this, have indeed been uttered by thee. Even this, O mighty armed one, is what I also like. Let therefore that be done which should be done next. Let indeed 7 leaders be selected for thy army. Vaisampayana continued, summoning then those warriors eager for battle, viz., Drupada and Virata, and that bull of Sinis race and Drishtadhyumna the prince of Panchala, and King Drishtaketu and Prince Shikandi of Panchala, and Sahadeva the ruler of the Magadhas. Yudhishthira duly appointed them in the command of his 7 divisions. And above them all was placed in command of all the troops that Drishtadhyumna, who had sprung from the blazing sacrificial fire for the destruction of Drona. And Dhananjaya of curly hair, was made the leader of all those high-souled leaders. And handsome Janardana, endued with great intelligence, he who was the younger brother of Sankarshna, was chosen as the guide of Arjuna and the driver of his steeds. And beholding that a very destructive battle was about to take place, there came O king into the Pandava encampment, Halayuda, accompanied by Akrura, and Gada and Samva and Uddhava, and Rukmani's son Pradyumna, and Ahuka's sons and Charudeshna, and others. And surrounded and guarded by those foremost warriors of the Vrishni race, resembling a herd of mighty tigers, like Vasava in the midst of the Maruts, the mighty armed and handsome Rama, attired in garments of blue silk and resembling the peak of the Kailasa mountain, and endued with the sportive gait of the lion and possessed of eyes having their ends reddened with drink, came there at such a time. And beholding him, King Yudhishthira the just and Kesava of great effulgence, and Pritha's son Vrikodara of terrible deeds, and Arjuna the wielder of Gandiva and all the other kings that were there rose from their seats. And they all offered worship unto Halayuda as he came to that place. And the Pandava king touched Rama's hands with his own. And that chastiser of foes, Halayuddha in return, accosting them all with Vasudeva at their head, and saluting respectfully both Virata and Drupada, who were senior in years, sat down on the same seat with Yudhishthira. And after all the kings had taken their seats, Rohini's son, casting his eyes on Vasudeva, began to speak. And he said, "This fierce and terrible slaughter is inevitable. It is without doubt a decree of fate, and I think that it cannot be averted. Let me hope, however, to behold all of you, with your friends, come safely out of this strife, with sound bodies and perfectly hale. Without doubt, all the Kshatriyas of the world that are assembled together have their hour come. A fierce melee, covering with a mire of flesh and blood, is sure to take place." I said unto Vasudeva repeatedly in private, "O slayer of Madhu, unto those that bear equal relationship to us, observe thou an equal behavior. As are the Pandavas to us, even so is King Duryodhana. Therefore, give him also the same aid." Indeed, he repeatedly solicited it. For thy sake, however, the slayer of Madhu regarded not my words. Looking at Dhananjaya, he hath with his whole heart been devoted to your cause. Even this is what I certainly think, viz., that the victory of the Pandavas is sure, for Vasudeva's Visho Bharata is even so. As regards myself, I dare not cast my eyes on the world without Krishna on my side. It is for this that I follow whatever Krishna seeketh to achieve. Both of these heroes, well skilled in encounter with the mace, are my disciples. My affection therefore for Bhima is equal to that for King Duryodhana. For these reasons I shall now repair to the Tirtha of the Saraswati for ablutions, for I shall not be able to behold with indifference the destruction of the Kauravas." Having said this, the mighty armed Rama, obtaining the leave of the Pandavas and making the slayer of Madhu desist from following him farther, set out on his journey for the sacred waters. Thus ends the 158th section in the Bhagavathyanapurva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 159, Bhagavathyanapava. Vaisampayana said, "About this time there came into the Pandava camp Bhishmaka's son, foremost among all persons of truthful resolution and known widely by the name of Rukmi. The high-souled Bhishmaka, who was otherwise called King Hiranyaroman, was the friend of Indra. And he was most illustrious among the descendants of Bhoja and was the ruler of the whole southern country. And Rukmi was a disciple of that lion among the Kimpurushas who was known by the name of Drona, having his abode on the mountains of Gandhamadana. And he had learned from his preceptor the whole science of weapons with its 4 divisions. And that mighty armed warrior had obtained also the bow named Vijaya of celestial workmanship, belonging to the great Indra, and which was equal to Gandiva in energy and to also Saranga held by Krishna. There were 3 celestial bows owned by the denizens of heaven, viz., Gandiva owned by Varuna, the bow called Vijaya owned by Indra, and that other celestial bow of great energy said to have been owned by Vishnu. This last, Saranga, capable of striking fear into the hearts of hostile warriors, was held by Krishna. The bow called Gandiva was obtained by Indra's son, Arjuna, from Agni on the occasion of the burning of Khandava, while the bow called Vijaya was obtained from Drona by Rukmi of great energy. Baffling the nooses of Mura and slaying by his might that Asura, and vanquishing Naraka the son of the earth, Hrishiksa, while recovering the begemmed rings of Aditi, with 16,000 girls and various kinds of jewels and gems, obtained that excellent bow called Saranga. And Rukmi, having obtained the bow called Vijaya, whose twang resembled the roar of the clouds, came to the Pandavas, as if inspiring the whole universe with dread. Formerly, proud of the might of his own arms, the heroic Rukmi could not tolerate the ravishment of his sister Rukmani by wise Vasudeva. He had set out in pursuit, having sworn that he would not return without having slain Janardana. and accompanied by a large army consisting of 4 kinds of forces that occupied as it marched a very large portion of the earth, accoutred in handsome coats of mail and armed with diverse weapons and resembling the swollen current of the Ganga, that foremost of all wielders of weapons set out in pursuit of Vasudeva of Vrishni's race. And having come up to him of Vrishni's race, who was lord and master of everything obtainable by ascetic austerities, Rukmi, O king, was vanquished and covered with shame. And for this he returned not to his city Kundina. And on the spot where that slayer of hostile heroes was vanquished by Krishna, he built an excellent city named Bhojakatta. And O king, that city filled with large forces and teeming with elephants and steeds, is widely known on the earth by that name. Endued with great energy, that hero, cased in mail and armed with bows, fences, swords and quivers, quickly entered the Pandava camp, surrounded by an Akshauhini of troops. And Rukmi entered that vast army, under a standard effulgent as the sun, and made himself known to the Pandavas from desire of doing what was agreeable to Vasudeva. King Yudhishthira, advancing a few steps, offered him worship. And duly worshipped and eulogized by the Pandavas, Rukmi saluted them in return and rested for a while with his troops. And addressing Dhananjaya, the son of Kunti, in the midst of the heroes there assembled, he said, If, O son of Pandu, thou art afraid, I am here to render thee assistance in the battle. The assistance I will give thee will be unbearable by thy force. There is no man in this world who is equal to me in prowess. I will slay those foes of thine whom thou, O son of Pandu, wilt assign to me. I will slay one of those heroes, viz., Drona and Kripa and Bhishma, and Karna. Or, let all these kings of the earth stand aside. Slaying in battle thy foes myself, I will give the earth. And he said this in the presence of King Yudhishthira the just and of Kesava, and in the hearing of the assembled monarchs and all others in the camp. Then casting his eyes on Vasudeva and Pandu's son King Yudhishthira the just, Dhananjaya the intelligent son of Kunti smilingly, but in a friendly voice said these words, Born in the race of Kuru, being especially the son of Pandu, naming Drona as my preceptor, having Vasudeva for my ally, and bearing besides the bow called Gandiva, how can I say that I am afraid? O hero, when on the occasion of the tale of cattle, I fought with the mighty Gandharvas, who was there to assist me? In that terrific encounter also with the gods and Danavas banded together in great numbers at Khandava, who was my ally when I fought? When again I fought with the Nivatakavachas and with those other Danavas called Kalakayas, who was my ally? When again at Virata's city I fought with the numberless Kurus, who was my ally in that battle? Having paid my respects, for battle's sake, to Rudra, Sakra, Vaisravana, Yama, Varuna, Pavaka, Kripa, Drona, and Madhava, and wielding that tough celestial bow of great energy called Gandiva, and accoutred with inexhaustible arrows and armed with celestial weapons, how can a person like me, or tiger among men, say even unto Indra armed with the thunderbolts such words as, I am afraid? Words that robbed one of all his fame. O thou of mighty arms, I am not afraid, nor have I any need of thy assistance. Go therefore, or stay as it pleaseth or suiteth thee. Hearing these words of Arjuna, Rukmi taking away with him his army vast as the sea repaired the noble of Bharata's race, to Duryodhana. And King Rukmi, repairing thither, said the same words unto Duryodhana. But that king, proud of his bravery, rejected him in the same way. Thus, O king, 2 persons withdrew from the battle, viz., Rohini's son Rama of Vrishni's race and King Rukmi. And after Rama had set out on his pilgrimage to the Tirthas and Bhishmaka's son Rukmi had departed thus, the sons of Pandu once more sat down for consulting with one another. And that conclave presided over by King Yudhishthira the just, abounding with numerous monarchs, blazed forth like the firmament bespangled with lesser luminaries, with the moon in their midst. Thus ends the 159th section in the Bhagavathyanapurva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 160, Bhagavathyanapava. Janamejaya said, after the soldiers had been arrayed thus in order of battle on the field of Kurukshetra, what, O bull, among Brahmanas did the Kauravas then do, urged as they were by destiny itself? Vaisampayana said, after the soldiers, O bull of the Bharata race, had been arrayed thus in order of battle, Dhritarashtra king said these words to Sanjaya. Dhritarashtra said, Come, O Sanjaya, tell me with the fullest details all that hath happened in the encampment of the Kuru and the Pandava troops. I regard destiny to be superior, and exertion useless, for although I understand the evil consequences of war that will lead only to ruin, still I am unable to restrain my son who rejoices in gambling and considers deceit to be wisdom. Understanding everything, I am not yet able to secure my own welfare. O Sutta, my understanding is capable of seeing the defects of measures, but when I approach Duryodhana, that understanding of mine turneth away from the right path. When such is the case, O Sanjaya, that will be which must be. Indeed, the sacrifice of one's corporeal body in battle is the laudable duty of every Kshatriya. Sanjaya said, This question, O great king, that thou hast put is indeed worthy of thee. It behoveth thee not, however, to impute entire fault to Duryodhana only. Listen to me, O king, as I speak of this exhaustively. That man who commit by evil in consequence of his own misconduct, should never impute the fault to either time or the gods. O great king, he amongst men who perpetrate every wicked act, deserveth to be slain in consequence of his perpetrating those acts. Afflicted with injuries in consequence of the match at dice, the sons of Pandu, however, with all their counsellors quietly bore all those injuries, looking up, O best of men, to thy face alone. Hear from me fully, O king, of the slaughter that is about to take place in battle. Of steeds and elephants and kings endued with immeasurable energy. Hearing patiently, O thou that art endued with great wisdom, of the destruction of the world in the fierce battle that has been brought about. Come to this conclusion and no other, viz., that man is never the agent of his acts, right or wrong. Indeed, like a wooden machine, man is not an agent in all he does. In this respect, three opinions are entertained. Some say that everything is ordained by God. Some say that our acts are the result of free will. And others say that our acts are the result of those of our past lives. Listen then therefore with patience to the evil that hath come upon us. Thus ends the 168th section in the Bhagavathyanapurva of the Udyoga Parva. Thus ends the Bhagavathyanapurva of the Udyoga Parva. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like and subscribe to be notified of when new audiobooks are uploaded. Thank you for listening and learning. Shanti.